Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Technology Foresight Council. Thank you for joining us here for this first session of 2026. We're excited to see such a strong turnout today, and I want to thank you for the engagement and thoughtful participation we saw during our inaugural Technology Foresight Council session this past October. At our first session, we had around 100 attendees, and today we had over 250 registered attendees. It's really exciting to see the growth and think about where we go from here. Just to recap, last session we had Scott Persons, the IT director for Tooele County, Utah. He worked with Polymorphic, one of our TechShare awarded vendors, to map existing processes and built systems that streamlined critical workflows, achieving a remarkable 45% efficiency gain in the county recorder's office. This significantly reduced citizen wait times and improved service delivery. That level of efficiency is a testament to a thoughtful approach that puts both citizens and staff at the center of technological change. Scott is now planning to expand AI implementation into additional departments. Hearing this case study, one of the clearest takeaways from that first meeting was your candid and honest feedback. You want real examples, not theories. You want to hear what's actually working inside cities today. What's been implemented, what's delivering value, and what lessons were learned along the way. That feedback is exactly what continues to shape the Technology Foresight Council. At its core, the TFC is designed to be a practical forum, one that spotlights real-world implementations already underway in local governments. This is not about vendor pitches or conceptual talks. It's about implementation, impact, and lessons learned, and creating space for agencies to learn directly from one another. It's also a place where we explore how cooperative procurement through TechShare can help scale innovation responsibly and efficiently. TechShare is a public service to our member entities, and part of that service is listening closely to your needs. After this webinar, you'll see a brief survey asking about your procurement priorities, whether that's artificial intelligence, robotics, public safety, infrastructure, or beyond. If you would, please take a moment to share that input with us. It directly informs how we support you. All right, today's theme is AI projects reshaping cities, from resident engagement to city operations. Our speakers today represent different city sizes, different regions, and different use cases, but they're navigating many of the same challenges. They're dealing with capacity, change management, data readiness, and implementation at scale. We're very excited to hear from two of our members today. First is Melissa Kraft. She's the Chief Innovation Officer with the City of Frisco. She will be speaking from experience about practical AI for city operations and resident engagement. Then Juan Perez, the Commissioner of Management Services with the City of Mount Vernon, New York, will be talking through his case study titled City of Mount Vernon, New York, AI-Powered Building Department. Finally, Tim Rosner, Mayor of Sherwood, Oregon, will be moderating a discussion with both speakers, followed by some audience Q&A. Before we hear directly from our city leaders, however, I'd like to introduce an ecosystem partner that plays a key role in helping surface and support many of these real-world implementations. Anthony Jameson is joining us from CivStart Ventures. CivStart Ventures focuses on smarter matchmaking for smarter government through its GovFit platform. This is a data-driven approach powered by expert insight that connects local governments with solutions that align to real operational needs and proven capabilities. Their work helps government leaders cut through the noise while also supporting GovTech startups as they navigate and scale within the public sector. Anthony brings a unique perspective on where AI is moving from concept to execution in cities across the country and how those implementations are taking shape on the ground. With that, Anthony, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. And so I wanted to start first before I go in introducing what who SIFSTART Ventures is. I just want to really quickly just frame the problem a little bit here. Most cities, counties are not struggling with the lack of AI tools. They're struggling with what we believe is signal overload. Um, Unclear ownership and procurement friction and pilot fatigue. Early exploration often creates risk. Again, that influx of vendors and political sensitivity, and the concern about triggering procurement too early. Vendors usually come and they're pitching capabilities while governments are trying to solve operational problems. And so the disconnect happens before procurement even starts, and a problem at the problems discovery, the ownership level, and where we're trying to build this trust. And so that's where we come in. That's where SIFSTART Ventures comes in. We provide that safe, buyer-controlled way for city and county leaders to understand operational challenges and explore solution options without initiating procurement or vendor outreach. Our role is not to sell software. Our role is to support informed decision making by translating real government challenges into deployable options and trusted connections, only when governments choose to proceed. So, over the past decade, we've built a national network of state and local decision makers that work every day to help cities move from interesting pilots to scale deployment on their own terms. And so, from our vantage point across many cities, after hundreds of conversations, AI initiatives stall in and there's three predictable reasons. First, the problem is framed too broadly. um, you know when you hear a city official or a county official when they're saying we need AI, when that real need is operational, reduces, after hour call volume, improves the multilingual access, and streamlines internal workflows. That's when it's actually working. Second, ownership is unclear. Challenges cut across departments, but no one has clear authority before a project is defined. And then that third point is early exploration feels risky. Leaders often worry about fairness, favoritism, and procurement exposure before they're ready to buy. And this is really a technology problem. This is where it happens, where there's a coordination and trust failure. And so we operate as a structured discovery and routing layer before you get to that buying process and that mindset. First, we do structured discovery. We have like these short non-sales conversations. They're typically anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to understand what are some of those urgent over the next 6 to 12 months problems, along with some context, constraints, and any like prior tips or efforts you might have engaged in. Second, with clarity, you guys receive a written discovery summary capturing that challenge in your own words. Um, some common solution approaches other governments are considering in relevant contexts. And this is all given back to you for your internal use. And the third is that what we call buyer control routing. And that's where governments decide what happens next, if anything. That could be having these exploratory conversations with potential solutions, informal scoping, pilot discussions, or you might say, hey, we're going to park that issue, or decline it entirely. But that introduction only happens when you explicitly opt in. And when solutions are explored, we align closely with civic marketplace. So governments can clearly see what is procurement ready now without changing their procurement or legal processes. And at every step, governments stay in control. There's no assumptions, no automatic outreach. And what that looks like, and I've got I can do this in a minute. And what that looks like in practice to us is across the country, cities are successfully deploying AI for resident engagement, digital front doors, internal workflows, automation, and after hour operations, not because AI is novel, but because early exploration was safe, structured, and aligned before procurement even began. And what we're hearing from what we're excited to hear from is from Juan and Melissa today about those examples on what their cities have been doing, and the execution of discipline they've used to implement their AI solutions. Our role is to make early discovery possible, uh, uh, make early discovery process repeatable so that many cities and more counties can reach the stage with less risk and less staff burden. So as I close, the takeaway here is this is the future of AI for municipals. It's not about chasing tools or chasing solutions. It's about creating a safe front door for early problem discovery where governments can explore options, reduce noise, and stay in control. So I'm just going to stop there and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Anthony, and thank you, John, for the introduction at the top of the meeting. Again, I'm Tim Rosner. I'm going to be moderating a discussion here, and we'll be doing some Q&A questions with our two speakers here today. So if you have questions, start writing them down, and when we get to that point, we'll try to get to your questions. But first, I'd like to reintroduce Melissa from one of the fastest growing cities in the country, City of Frisco, Texas. And she's here to talk about AI and how they've applied that within their organization. Melissa.
Thanks, Tim. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the City of Frisco. Anthony really keyed in on a lot of key points as far as how we even got started with AI. We really try to be disciplined and intentional. So before I even begin to talk about the case study, I kind of want to talk about how we even start to select it. So we really try to focus any emerging technology like AI to have some sort of framework before we begin to engage in some of the technologies. So we try to keep it in 4 distinct key areas. The first one is really around organizational excellence. Can this technology enhance, automate, with response times, whether it's internal or external? Is it going to help with our processes? The second key piece is really around citizen engagement. Are we making our citizen engagement better? Are we increasing visibility, transparency, also encouraging inclusivity as part of that tool? The third piece is really around micromobility. City of Frisco is definitely a growing city. We're doing a lot of reinvestment in our assets to also include a lot of increase in traffic. So we want to make sure solutions can help solve for that problem. And then the last focus area is really around public safety. Ensuring, Frisco being one of the safest cities, we want to ensure the solutions we're leveraging are making sure that's being taken into account. Okay, now to begin. What was the problem and challenge, right? Really, our demand is increasing faster than our ability to add staff. Residents expect faster responses, clearer communication. We notice our teams are spending significant time listening to voicemails, transcribing calls, documenting conversations, and even routing information manually. While we do have a 311 system and an app that takes in residents' inquiries, residents were still calling our phone numbers, right? So being able to blend both of those and give actionable insights, that was still a problem we were trying to solve as part of that. Again, the challenge really wasn't technology per se, it was really capacity. We were needing a way to scale communication and documentation without scaling headcount. And if one department's getting those frequent calls, there's a safe assumption other departments are encountering similar issues. So being able to prototype, then pilot and use a technology that can be used not only in one department, in multiple departments was a key criteria for that. Now, the AI approach. Really, our goal is to use AI as an efficiency multiplier, not a replacement for people. We always say AI is there to augment work, not necessarily replace it. You still need that person and that critical thought behind the intention of using the tool, to making sure we were able to do 2 things. One, improve our internal operations by reducing manual work. to really improving the resident experience. We wanted to make our interactions faster and more responsive, especially when it comes to traffic. Again, we do know and understand that is a sensitive topic. I'm also a resident with the City of Frisco. I do not want to be at a stoplight for longer than I have to. To being able to empower and give them the tools they need to help automate some of those pieces was crucial for us. Really, our goal was a practical use of AI, handling some of those repetitive, time-consuming tasks so staff can focus really on judgment, service, and that follow-up. So let's focus on implementation. We started with one simple question: where are people spending time listening, typing, or repeating the same work, right? Essentially, where are the pain points and where are they happening on an operational perspective? Really, that voice and transcription became a thing that kind of bubbled up, that we knew multiple departments were facing that. Again, we have that web 311 input, but people are still wanting to pick up the phone and call someone. So oftentimes they would leave a message. So how can we help assess those, process those, and also get those to the hands that need it to solve that particular problem? So really, we looked at what we would call implementation principles, use case and first of areas of operational efficiency, and then start small, prove value, and then scale. One of the things that I think makes City of Frisco pretty successful in being able to leverage some of this emerging technology, we do not take a big bang approach, right? I don't have a $500,000 budget to do all these big things, but incremental innovation is the way to go. Let's start off small, one really specific use case, but that use case, again, can be used across multiple departments and take it from there. And design once and reuse across departments is really what we try to do. So working closely with our traffic departments to align how those transcripts would be used, how the records would be managed, and how AI would support that workflow, not necessarily disrupt. Again, I want to emphasize that, this AI tool is meant to augment work and automate processes, but it's not going to replace that entire process. And the next piece is really ensuring alignment across department. So as we were implementing this AI tool, what was really the impact of having an AI voice transcription service? So our goal was the AI tool, it takes all the voicemails, it summarizes them, and puts them in themes, and then automatically emails them to the stakeholder. And now we were able to get that to the stakeholder, but also that stakeholder was able to quickly kind of communicate not only workload, not only what the problem was, but how to solve it and get it to kind of the technicians that were going to respond to that. So, we resulted in time savings, improved responsiveness to staff. Again, when you're talking about hundreds of emails a day, okay, I'm exaggerating, maybe not hundreds, but at least 20 to 50 emails a day, right? That's time spent that someone, instead of listening and writing it out, now we can consolidate those, use AI to really get you the themes. Is it a particular stoplight? Is it a particular intersection? Is it when particular events are happening, right? So now we can leverage that and put that into our machine learning model to also look at it from a predictive capability too, right? This is the second phase as part of that, right? Now that we've gotten all this information, how do we learn what we learn operationally to help prevent, reduce, or predict what might happen next time when we take on some of these common issues and common themes? One of the things that, is talking to kind of those departments, it really reduced staff strain, right? Now they can focus on the higher value interactions and decision making. They're not having to do that repetitive work of analyzing, transcribing, grouping into themes, producing a report for their manager of all these calls they're getting, right? That's all automatic. Again, it wasn't a one-off efficiency, improvement like this now is now we have the capability. We built that capability as we were piloting, prototyping, and leveraging it now to expand to multiple departments. And I think for a high growth area like Frisco, I think this is really important to make sure we're having sustainable solutions that really help what we're trying to solve. Again, going back to those kind of 4 key areas of organizational efficiency, citizen engagement, micromobility, and public safety. So from a Frisco perspective, what's next, right? Again, going beyond initial use cases, voice and transcription, that was really our entry point, not the end state. we always build with scale in mind. We want to ensure that what we're testing is, again, being disciplined and intentional about what we're trying to solve, what's the outcome we're trying to achieve, and how to continue to leverage that into integrating into our data analytic platforms, identify trends and service gaps. Again, ensuring that we're also, as we're leveraging and testing these emerging technologies, governance is built into those capability too. Because that was one of the things, as we're looking, not what it can do, but what it can't do. So what happens if, resident leaves a voicemail with PI information? Is it getting scrubbed? Is it centrally located? Do we have our records retention policy that keeps that into account as well to make sure we have that responsible and transparent use as adoption continues to grow? Again, really focusing where AI, where are we reducing friction, where are we improving services, and also really allowing our workforce to keep pace and growth, right? We want to make sure we're giving them tools, again, to augment their work, not replace the work, because that's a whole thing. With AI, you got to build trust with staff. It starts with, one of the things Frisco really focuses on is, your digital literacy, making sure people are educated in the process. I think this is where I think Texture really came into play for us. There was already a pre-vetting that came into account because it was vetted out through NTC COG and working in partnership. We were able to pick a vendor that we trusted that's also here in Frisco as well. So being able to really leverage that technology a little quicker. Because if you think about a procurement method, I think, Anthony, you were spot on. I'm not going to pick a product that hasn't been somewhat vetted out, right? We want to make sure, it has the governance, it has assurance and protection that we require when we're testing these things, right? So again, one of the key emphasis that, want to emphasize is really, again, all cities, we all face similar issues, but being able to articulate, here's the outcome, here's the problem we're trying to solve. Technology is the piece that just kind of coincides with that. I know we've all seen this in webinars time to time. It's really being practical on where it can be leveraged. So, and I think I don't know, Tim, if you have any questions for me or anything I can elaborate on. I am a fast talker, but that's I'm a fast growing city. So we're just moving along. So.
No, that was amazing, Melissa. We're gonna give Juan a chance here to talk, and we'll get right back to you with questions. But I just want to reintroduce Juan Perez. He's a commissioner of management services for the City of Mount Vernon, New York. And I just have to say, Juan, you're one of the most densely populated cities in the country. My city and your city are about the same footprint. I have 21,000 people. You have over 70,000 people. I don't know how you do it. So I'm really, really interested in hearing your discussion around how you powered your building department with AI. So take it away, Juan.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Again, Juan Perez, I'm the Commissioner of Management Services. I'm basically the CIO for the City of Mount Vernon. And all the things that Melissa said, we basically agree 100%. We're definitely in that same perspective. The difference for me was that I took a different approach to implementing AI within the city. The challenge for me specifically was related to the fact that we run OpenGov as our standard platform for the buildings department. They do everything within that platform. Within the city, we use OpenGov quite a bit. So one of the things that I needed to do was find an application that would actually tie into the OpenGov platform, something that we can integrate into that backend environment. And I had explored a bunch of different application services, et cetera, but I couldn't find anyone that would integrate with the OpenGov platform. At some point last year, our leadership had gone out to a meeting, and they encountered Readily. And he came back and told me, I found an organization that's able to connect into OpenGov. I didn't think it was possible, since everybody that I had spoken to, as soon as we started talking integration, we always got an answer that there was no way for them to integrate back into our OpenGov platform. So that opened up the door for me to be able to bring an AI solution to the buildings department. The buildings department happens to be one of the busier departments within the city. They get a lot of walk-ins, they get a lot of phone calls. They are an exceptionally busy department. And one of the challenges that they face is being able to respond to citizens' requests while still doing the day-to-day operations. So one of the things I wanted to focus on was providing them a tool that would basically tackle all the low-hanging fruit and make them able to be more productive in terms of the higher value things that they're able to provide to the public. So I wanted to provide them with a tool that would not only give them the ability to respond or give the department the ability to respond to people 24/7, but also give them the ability to respond to those quick touch points. So then when people did come into the building, the staff would be able to target higher value items. In terms of the way the city was looking at AI, we've had leadership backing from day one. The mayor has been very interested in AI. The only guiding light that she put in front of me, she wanted to make sure that any implementation of any AI technology that we did within the city was done in a way that it wouldn't affect staffing. So that's been one of the guiding principles in terms of how we implement AI within the city. We wanted to make sure that the staff understood that we're doing it as a force multiplier to make them more efficient, but it wouldn't impact staffing. Excuse me. So in implementing readily within the city of Mount Vernon, what we actually wound up doing is implementing a bunch of virtual agents for the buildings department. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was that we did it in a safe, repeatable fashion. And doing it within the buildings department allowed us to do it in such a way that we knew exactly what we needed to do, how we needed to apply it, and basically tackle specific targets. The buildings department has a very set bunch of processes, and by taking those processes and working with the department, we were able to basically transcribe those functions into an AI platform. And working with Readily, we were able to take those concepts and those ideas, bring them into an AI platform, and then implement those into the OpenGov platform. In terms of actual implementation, we work directly with Readily and the buildings department, their leadership, and we basically built everything out piece by piece. We had them sit with us. They told us exactly what they get from the public, what type of things the public is typically looking from them. And then from that, we were able to tease out what items, what individual pieces we could have the AI platform put out to the public, and then based on the information that the public is getting, then what other items we can go back and now do that that high touch in-person work with the individual public now that we're providing those sources through the AI agent. In terms of impact, one of the things that we've already seen is that an actual citizen was able to save money by actually getting an answer from the AI bot where he was ready to implement an environment. He went to do some research on the permit, and based on the information he got from the AI, he realized that he wouldn't actually be able to implement the concept that he was going for, and it actually wound up saving him over $100,000. I don't have all the details because unfortunately he hasn't been able to get back to us and provide details for us. Then in terms of actual hard data, since we implemented the project in October, we don't have a full set of data at this point in terms of the direct impact to the building department. The interesting thing is that we're seeing the public use the AI for almost everything. But we haven't fully grown out the environment yet. Our plans are to bring in other departments into the environment as time permits. Again, the buildings department was the heavy lift for us because I was a department that we saw the need to be able to provide resources to them. However, like every other city, we don't necessarily have the budgets to bring in loads of staff. Using the Readily application has in effect allowed us to hire a bunch of people that are basically responding to public inquiries on a 24/7 basis. So it's been that force multiplier for us. And I think, and again, I apologize, but I do tend to talk fast also like Melissa. I think I've addressed most of the top items that I wanted to talk to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Juan. That was amazing. Melissa, if you want to come back online, we'll kind of turn back into we'll just do a brief moderated conversation here, and then we'll throw this out for questions. But I'm just curious, and maybe Melissa, you could start. What advice would you give cities? I mean, we're all being inundated with AI, and we hear about the efficiency gains, and we also hear about the concerns and the governance issues with local government and AI. I mean, what advice would you give a city that's just starting this journey, how to think about procurement, how to think about introducing it, to the culture within your organization?
I think at first it starts with the culture. I think Juan was spot on. You'd have to have a support from kind of the leadership team as far as being willing and open to experiment. And also start small and then scale. Start with a department that has a problem they're trying to solve. What friction are you trying to remove? Or what services are you trying to add? So being able to come from that clear goal, and then you can, kind of how I kind of talked a bit in kind of those phases, then you can start working through that phase and then see if it's successful. And if it's not, you can pivot and figure out what it is you're trying to solve. So if I had to say, start small, try to reduce friction where it makes sense or where your biggest pain point is, and work through it with, as a team with the departments. But you got to have the culture, because if people are scared of AI, that's going to be a constraint or an issue you're going to have to try to solve.
Amazing. I love that concept of, and it's been true in IT for as long as I can remember, that what's the problem you're trying to solve, right? And
yes.
and what are you trying
I know
to
it
do?
sounds really cliche, but it does, you got to start somewhere. So
that's right. Juan, did you have anything to add to that?
100% agree. When I started looking at AI technology for the city, there were just so many different potential places to actually implement it that I basically got into analysis paralysis. So like Melissa said, I narrowed it down. We found a particular target. We said, this is where we actually need a solution. AI could potentially solve this for us. So we went for a particular target. We laser focus on that, and that's where we went. And again, leadership support is crucial, because the mayor is very much into the idea of the technology and applying it where we need it, not just for the sake of applying it, but applying it where we could actually solve something.
Yeah, and I think I can make fun of mayors here, but as a mayor myself, I know I push the organization a lot. We need this, we need that. So we need good folks like you to kind of temper that sometimes, right? But I guess another question I have, and kind of on the other side of this, is as you implemented and it was up and running, were there any surprises, like things that, wow, I didn't think they would use the product this way, or they're doing things I didn't expect? I mean, any surprises or learnings from that post implementation side?
I think the public is definitely using it more than what we expected. I think with any AI, you put it out there, people will make it do things that you didn't know it could do. We were very intentional in terms of how we rolled it out. I've been very cautious about implementing AI within the city, targeted, safe approach. But I think the public is saying, oh, great, is there? Let me just go ahead and kick the tires and see what I can do, and I'll do it until it breaks, which is a good thing.
Awesome. Melissa, anything to add?
I do. I would say is that not only was the process, right, the resolution time was a little quicker for the residents as far as addressing issues, but that interdepartmental communication was now more efficient, more predictable. It just made it easier for interdepartments to work together a little more efficient, right? So, well, we expected that, but to see it in action, I think was a hidden outcome.
Very cool. And I just one more kind of question along these lines, and then I have some other questions. When you think about the problem you're trying to solve and you thought about the departments that you're working with, how much did the culture of that individual department come into play? Like, did they have change agents that you knew would embrace this and be ambassadors of this new functionality for the rest of the organization? I'm just kind of curious how that played into your thinking.
That was huge because, in order to enhance the change, there's what I call a productivity lag because you're trying to learn that process. And, at times, if you're using that AI, you might run it parallel just to ensure it's going to work as it's predicted, right? You go through kind of that user acceptance stage. And some of the AI technologies, because it's not perfect, they have to be in agreement of what not perfect is or when good enough is good enough. So being able to work with them as part of that change is going to be key. And that's what we saw too. We've already working on our third AI implementation. And yeah, that's understanding when good enough is good enough. Yeah. So.
Juan, were you able to leverage those change agents within your organization?
Yes, the buildings department is a department that is more than happy to take any tools that I put in front of them. They just jumped at the opportunity when it was presented to them. They jumped at the opportunity when I told them, we're going to be able to do this, and AI potentially is going to do this, reduce the cost, be able to provide you with that automated answering system, be able to do schedules. So as soon as I put things in front of them, they were basically there, ready to go.
Great.
And they've been very vocal supporters for other departments because we are starting to bring other departments into the fold. And the buildings department has been like, yes, let's do this. It works. You should do this and jump on.
So you have some folks that want to be first to be second. Is that what I'm
Yes,
hearing?
100%.
Yes. Amazing. We have a question that just came in from the attendees here. If a resident asks for a non-building department issue, Juan, I think this one's for you. Is there a common or a placeholder response that describes how they can get to that question or get an answer for that? I mean, how do you handle the questions that are not specific to what you've implemented?
While the AI was implemented specifically for the buildings department, we have been providing generic, I don't want to call it generic. We have been inputting additional information from the city website. So city council minutes, documents that have been published on our website. Basically, we've been feeding it the city knowledge into the system. So while the focus is the buildings, we do have other information in there. So there is some general information that can be pulled out from the AI.
Great. Melissa, I'm sure you've had a similar challenge in your environment.
I lost that last little bit. Sorry, can you repeat that?
The question is if the general public's coming in and ask a question that your system's not set up to answer yet, how do you handle that? How do you get them to a common contact page or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's, ensuring you're working with the departments to have kind of a general answer or pointing them to, a service number or kind of the website for more information. Please click here. Or, for instance, on our AI avatar, we purposely tested on things it shouldn't be answering, right? And how to redirect to where it needs to be. So making sure you're thinking through those processes as well, too.
Yeah, or those questions where they think it's city responsibility and it's really county.
And it's not, or saying, hey, yeah, I think thinking through that ahead of time is key before you implement. So
great. I have another question. It's for both of you. Can you share how their systems tracked transferred calls, converted to emails, service requests go to a division? I think it's more of a workflow question, right? How do you integrate those different technologies and how did that work together?
So as part of our solution, one of our requirements was to incorporate a dashboard to provide both an operational perspective and a kind of senior management perspective via reports. So being able to kind of track to see, how are we getting an intake of those requests to really start to build on, okay, so what's phase 2? And I think you're already there, Juan, integrating OpenGov into that platform. Like how do we, for Frisco, now that we're using the phone calls, we're transcribing, now we got themes, we're incorporating in the dashboard. How do we take it to the next step where it's, automatically creating tickets within our work order system and kind of feeding it through that way? Kind of that's where we're at now. So
And for us, we're still growing the environment. So we're going back to, and the meetings are still ongoing. We're going back to readily to say, well, now we want this, now we want that, now we want to integrate that.
Yeah.
So it is still very much a growing environment for the buildings department as we bring in other departments as well.
Yeah, going to that kind of agile and incremental approach, right? So, you know what your overall goal is now that you've got some data. How do you optimize it, enhance, and continue to leverage that workflow?
Great, awesome. So another question here. We're getting a lot of questions. This is great. In thinking about your communities and helping them better understand the implementation of AI throughout the departments they use, did you do any forums or outreach? What kind of outreach did you do to the community to kind of bring them along?
We actually didn't do an outreach. We just implemented it with conceptually the idea that the mayor has in terms of safe implementation, inclusivity, things of that nature. That is definitely in our DNA. But in terms of actually making it available to the public, we got it ready, made an announcement, and just put it out there for the public to start using.
So ours was a little different for our citizen engagement AI projects. We did use our CDC board as part of that. So even before we started to really leverage that use case, we started with the prototype and started to say, hey, here's the intention of how it works. Here's potentially how it could look. Again, working with that partner to help create what it could look like. Once we got their buy-in is when we started to move into kind of that single use case, right? Making sure we understand. It was interesting when we were showing the prototype, they're like, we want it in all of our parks. We're like, slow down. We want to do a proof of value, right? We also wanted to see, we think people will use this. We'll use it in multiple languages. As you know, City of Frisco, World Cup is coming. We have the World Cup, the Hall of Fame, Soccer Hall of Fame here in Frisco. We hope to be a practice facility as well. So we know we're going to get a lot of visitors. Being able to solve for that problem in multiple languages, but we also want to ensure we can understand what the engagement patterns would look like, going back to the data pieces. Do we really see that proof of value first? So we scaled it back. They wanted us to scale more, but we ended up actually scaling it back. Let's use this use case. Let's really understand what it can or can't do. Because I think that's another key, I would say, lessons learned, not only focusing on what it should do, but what it shouldn't do, and how do you govern kind of that data and the security and all of the things that should go with that as well. Especially if you're using it as part of your operational workflow, you want to make sure you kind of pressure test it as well too. So
awesome, thank you. I'm curious. I'm gonna take a question for myself here, if that's okay. I'm curious. When the leadership in your organizations thought about what success looks like for this project, you talked about force multipliers and efficiency. What did you create KPIs, and how are you measuring that? And I'm just kind of curious what that looks like.
From City of Frisco, I would say we are in our crawling stage. So one of the things, we took a kind of a sentiment survey as far as how is the AI tool being used, meaning we sent a survey questions just to see the people using it. Is it doing its intended outcome? How do you feel about that? The second piece we looked at was kind of processing time. Did the processing time provide those efficiencies as far as resolution time? What would historically take? So we had to take a look back. Historically, on average, how long would it take to answer this type of request? So there was some prerequisite work before we really took into account what it could look like in the future. So we took those into account, kind of like a before and after look. And did we see time savings? Do the staff that are using the product, how do they feel about it? Kind of that sentiment analysis too. Taking into account that qualitative factor too. I think it's also important. And then can we continue to use it and enhance it, right? So that's going back to the ones closest to the process. Is it making your job easier? What else would you like for it to do? And believe it or not, we got a laundry list of things that they want to continue to kind of integrate and automate. But again, breaking it out kind of in that incremental step, right? So I think seeing the activities, the results make people get excited about the solution. So being able to incrementally add those enhancements and changes, I think were really crucial for what I would call the AI adoption of that particular tool.
Yeah, and for us, same thing. We're crawling. We don't have the metrics tied specifically to the AI yet. We have other metrics that we've used to measure what's going on in the buildings department. So seeing what happens to those particular metrics will give us an indication of the impact that the AI is having for us as we build out KPIs and dashboards throughout the year.
Great. Thank you. We have another question from the from our participants. And as someone with an IT background, this question makes me smile. But when a department brings you an AI tool that they're excited about and want to use, which happens a lot, what are those first 2 or 3 questions you ask them? How do you vet that? And Juan, I guess we'll start with you.
That is a great question. How do we vet that? I've taken a very cautious approach to AI in general. We have been telling staff, you can explore the AI environment. However, the restrictions are that you can only use public data in any AI system that you use. So generally speaking, we've told them you can use Copilot because it is part of our umbrella in the 365 environment. However, even in that environment, the only data I ever want you to feed into that system is public data. Anything that's published on the web, anything that you publish to the public, that information can be put into the system. Otherwise, you can't put anything else into the AI system. We're still creating guidelines and guidance for staff. So we're not necessarily encouraging people to bring tools to us. We're telling them, hold off. We'll provide the tools. We'll give you the guidance. I am, however, giving them educational tools. Get yourself up to speed, learn how AI can be implemented, learn how to use it safely, but don't bring tools to me just yet. I will bring the tools to you.
Great. And Melissa?
So we pushed the boundaries a little bit because I think, leveraging emerging technology and knowing there's an appetite for that in our organization. So we start off with, does it fall in kind of those key 4 areas we talked about, right? Whether it's organizational excellence, citizen engagement, mobility, and public safety. That's going to be the first question because this is where we're putting our efforts, our discipline, and focus. If the answer is yes, it's like, okay, so we have kind of standardized template we use when we're interacting with vendors, whether they're on-prem or cloud as a service. We have a tech survey that does incorporate some of those kind of AI components that they can kind of vet and talk through and vet out. So we try to understand, where's the data going? How's the data held? What do we anticipate? And, what's its intended outcome? And then we look at trying it out, quite frankly. I know we've rolled out AI tools, even in public safety, for our dispatchers, right? We needed a way for them to be able to train. We have an AI tool that is being leveraged for that, right? And again, understanding what it does, what's its outcome, working closely with that vendor, and making sure, again, the governance is there, the processes, and we also understand how they can report on it. So having some of those safeguards, as part of that is I guess vendor vetting is important, right? And making sure you have partners that can either help you vet through that. You have contract, like TechShare is a good example, right? Being able to leverage some of those contracts that we know some of the risks, are mitigated, or you have a plan for those risks and you understand what those risks are important. So we don't necessarily say no. We say, okay, let's try it out, but let's do it with some of these parameters. We got to answer the tech survey. We got to understand kind of the security, work with the vendor, how they've been vetted, and then let's move forward. We've had some success with that too. And other times we push back, I won't say who, but someone came from a conference and they're like, we need blockchain, Melissa. I was like, you need what? Like, why are you coming to these conferences? You're like in management. Like, let's talk about this. What it is, going back to, they say they want this technology, but once you start asking the questions, okay, what do you think this is trying to solve? It's nowhere near blockchain. They just needed something like Copilot to help bring up and compare two documents, right? Like I was like, okay, that's a little different, but we can get you there too, right? So being able to have, whether it's your BAs, if you have business analysts, to be able to understand what those requirements are key too. I feel like I went on a tangent, but I'm very passionate about this. So I think it's important to understand, to have some parameters and some criteria, even before you begin to engage, I think is key. So.
No, that's amazing. And kind of what I heard from both of you was you want to give them the place to go explore and new ideas and do things and provide benefit to the organization, but you need guardrails, right? You need to make sure that they're not going off a cliff and taking everybody with you. So that's amazing. So I'm looking at some of the other questions here. Let's shift gears just a little bit. I'm curious on the front end of these projects when you were vetting different vendors. What did procurement look like, and how was it different from a normal RFP process or procurement process in your organization? Did you have to think differently about that when it came to these AI tools? And I guess we'll go to Juan. We'll have Juan start with this one.
No, we have our procurement policies basically set in stone. This is the way we do things, so we follow those to the T. However, in implementing readily, it was slightly different in the sense that, again, I was approaching it from the standpoint of, here's a product, this is what I have to use. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It has to integrate with this. I could not find anybody that would integrate with OpenGov. So in this particular case, when I went to City Council to say, this is what I want to do, this is what I would have moved forward with, it was a slightly different ask because there were no other vendors that I could bring to them to say, these other people can do this. There was nobody else except Readily that could integrate with the OpenGov platform. So instead of me going out and doing RFP, RFQ, et cetera, I only had one platform that could actually do it. Otherwise, yes, I would have followed the standard process to put out bids, et cetera.
Great. Melissa, do you have anything to add? What was your experience?
Yeah, I would say it was unique. Working with our procurement director, I was like, is it a product? Is it a service? Especially when we were looking at outsourced solutions. I'm like, well, technically it's a service. So how do we take into account services, even if it's an emerging technology? So let's look at it from a risk perspective. How are they bonded? Where's the data? How do we understand how it works on the back end? And do we have those safeguards built into that contract? And additionally, especially if it's a citizen engagement one, we bring in our communications department too. Like before it rolls out, what are some of the key things you need to know and understand to help kind of talk that risk through the public too, right? Because they have a say too. I'm also a resident. I just don't want a haphazard solution publicly posted, right? We need to understand how's it work, what's its outcome, and what to expect. So I think it evolved or organically, meaning I call it more swivel chair. We're like, hey guys, let's look at it together. Let's all get in a virtual room and talk about what we're concerned with. Let's put that as far as in contractual terms and have that conversation with the vendor, right? That's why we were able to kind of outsource some of our kind of AI solutions today that we have. If you go to visit Frisco, that's a solution there. Coming soon near you, we're going to have an AI avatar for our parks. And in addition to our AI transcription service, that's why we're able to test some of these test cases by using kind of that collaborative approach. But it did make people uncomfortable. Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't want to be in the paper. No one wants to be in the paper if it doesn't work, right? But it's like, well, the mayor did say he wants our knees to get scraped, right? He wants us to try. And the city manager's like, we want to do it in a very disciplined and smart approach. And that's how you take it. You take a very data-oriented, approach that you can back into, make sure you have those safeguards and risks, concerns addressed, so.
Awesome. I guess so. We have, I think we have time for one more quick question. Kind of looking back, is there anything you would have done differently with these projects? And Melissa, we'll start with you, and then we'll jump to Juan.
Understanding that the testing piece is going to take a lot longer. I think that's what we were finding out. Testing what it can and what it can't do takes just as long. Testing what it can't do. So, having more resources up front would be great. We're doing it with our existing staff and some of these AI and data initiatives. That would have been fantastic. So, yeah.
Awesome.
It took a lot longer than we anticipated, I would say. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
That seems to be a common challenge with a lot of IT projects. Juan.
I think I would have provided more training for the staff. One of the things I discovered as we were starting to work with this, I think conceptually, there were some ideas that were being brought to the table before we brought readily into the meetings where they said, oh, well, AI, great, we can do X, Y, and Z, and it can create this, and it can, I said, no, AI does not do that unless you provide the data. It's not going to happen. I would have focused on getting the team more training prior to us getting into the project, getting them to understand what AI could potentially do and not do, what conceptual, I guess, give them more IT training before we actually went into the room to actually start building out.
Well, amazing. Well, Melissa, Juan, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I learned a lot today. I hope everyone else did, and we really appreciate you coming and talking a little bit about your experience with implementing these AI projects within your cities. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Jonathan Blackman from TX Share to close this out.
All right, perfect, Tim. Thank you so much. As we wrap up today's session, I'd like to remind everyone that you can find these and all of TechShare's awarded contracts on the Civic Marketplace platform. The TechShare awarded contracts cover ever-growing AI ecosystem elements supporting local governments today, from resident engagement to internal operations. And through Civic Marketplace and this Technology Foresight Council, we seek to highlight how these solutions fit together across different use cases and agency needs. If we think about what we've heard today, this is a good moment to step back and see how individual projects connect into a larger, scalable ecosystem, one that cities can access without having to start from scratch each time. As you leave today's discussion, we want to be very intentional about what happens next. For agencies, cities, counties, towns, we encourage you to explore the AI-awarded AI solutions available through TechShare and Civic Marketplace, and to start identifying practical near-term use cases within your own operations. Even small pilots can create momentum and inform broader adoption. For suppliers and solution providers, we encourage you to think strategically about how you leverage your TechShare awarded contract, particularly in light of the solutions and use cases that you've seen highlighted today, and where this ecosystem is headed. That means aligning your offerings with real operational needs, demonstrating clear implementation pathways, and using cooperative contracts as a foundation to scale solutions responsibly and efficiently across jurisdictions. Engagement with TechShare and Civic Marketplace should be focused on readiness, fit, and long-term impact, not just market access. Before we close, I want to sincerely thank our speakers and partners for sharing their time, their experience, and their lessons learned. Anthony Jameson from CivStart Ventures, Melissa Kraft from Frisco, Texas, and their solution through the TechShare awarded vendor White Glove under the AI Solutions for Public Sector Entities, and then Juan Perez with Mount Vernon, New York, and their solution through the TechShare awarded vendor Readily, also under the AI Solutions for Public Sector Entities. Finally, Tim Rosner, Mayor of Sherwood, Oregon, as our moderator for today's webinar. These real-world insights are exactly what the Technology Foresight Council is designed to surface. A reminder to all attendees, we'll be sending out a brief follow-up survey via email to gather your feedback, including suggestions for future speakers, topics, and where you're looking for additional support. Your feedback is really important to help us shape and plan future webinars, as well as understand your pain points, challenges, as well as your successes, especially those you might be willing to share in a future webinar. The Technology Foresight Council is an ongoing conversation, one that's focused on what's working today and what's possible next. We look forward to continuing that conversation with you throughout the year. Thank you again for your time and participation today, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.